Why did Almighty Allah, capable of transforming all of creation with a single word, send an angel with a golden basin and the water of Zamzam to a small boy playing in the dust? Why did he not purify the prophet's heart invisibly, without scars and without witnesses? For 14 centuries, theologians have searched for the answer to this question, and the answer they found overturns everything we thought we understood about why God needs physical signs. This scar on the chest was seen with human eyes and passed down to us. What it means, you are about to discover. Chapter 1. The boy they found dead, who rose up alive. Picture the scene. Arabia, around the year 570 CE, high noon, scorched earth. A group of children playing in the streets of Mecca, loud, carefree, the way children play everywhere and in every age. Then one of them falls. The children freeze. Then they scatter, running to his wet nurse, panicked, shouting over each other, all saying the same thing: Muhammad has been killed. The wet nurse rushes toward the boy. He is lying on the ground. The color has drained from his face. His body is still, but he is alive. He stands. He looks at them with the eyes of someone who has been somewhere very far away. The children describe what they saw. Someone came, seized him, threw him to the ground, did something to his chest, then vanished. No adult would have believed this account, were it not for one detail that could not be explained. On the boy's chest was a scar. Anas ibn Malik, one of the closest companions of the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, spent years by his side, and he remembered that scar for the rest of his life. He said, "I used to see the trace of that stitch on his chest." A man who knew the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, more intimately than most, saw that mark with his own eyes. What happened to that boy on the soil of Arabia? The answer is preserved in a hadith that Imam Muslim included in his collection known as the Sahih, one of the most rigorously verified books in the history of Islamic scholarship. Every narrator of this hadith was scrutinized with a precision that would put modern historians to shame. The hadith describes the event with the clarity of an eyewitness. Jibril, peace be upon him, came to the young Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, while he played with the other boys. He threw him to the ground. He opened his chest. He drew out the heart. He removed from it a clot of blood and said, "This is the portion of Satan in you." Then he washed the heart in a golden basin filled with the water of Zamzam. He restored it. He returned it to its place. One event, and it raises more questions than it answers. Why this way? Why physically and not spiritually? Why a golden basin and the water of Zamzam? Why did it happen 3 times across the Prophet's life, in childhood, at the dawn of his mission, and on the night of Ascension? What did it mean for him, and what does it mean for us? This is the story of 3 operations performed by an angel, of a scar on a chest that witnesses saw with their own eyes, of the preparation of a man for a mission no one before him had ever carried, and of a wisdom that scholars have sought to unravel for 14 centuries, a wisdom that still, to this day, leaves questions capable of reshaping everything we thought we understood about who the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, truly was. Chapter 2. A Childhood Without Shadow. Mecca in the year 570 CE, a city alive with trade and idols. Dusty streets, the smell of camel wool and hot stone, the noise of bazaars where dozens of languages and dialects collide. The Kaaba at the center, surrounded by 360 statues, drawing pilgrims from across the peninsula. Into this city, Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, was born. His father Abdallah died before his birth. His mother Amina gave him to a wet nurse, following the custom of Arab nobility who sent their children into the desert to be raised away from the diseases of the city. His wet nurse was Halima al-Sa'diya, from the tribe of Banu Sa'd. From the very first day, this child was different. Halima would later recount her family had been living in poverty, the livestock barely producing milk, the year cruel and dry. The day she took Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, to her breast, the milk came. The animals returned from pasture giving more than enough. Neighbors noticed and asked, "What has changed?" Only the child in the house had changed. He grew up among the children of Banu Sa'd. He ran across the hills. He herded livestock. He played, as all children play. His childhood companions would recall years later, he was one of them, and yet something in him was different. A stillness that belongs to people who see more than others. An honesty that sometimes struck the children as strange. He always said what he thought, even when it was inconvenient. He was like this until that morning. Anas ibn Malik, may Allah be pleased with him, narrates this hadith with the precision of a man who knew the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, personally. Midday, the boys were playing in an open space. Jibril, peace be upon him, came to the young Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, and threw him to the ground. The Arabic word in the hadith, sara'ahu, means a sudden, forceful fall. The child hit the ground without warning. The other boys saw it, but what happened next they described differently. Some saw a silhouette. Others saw only that Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, lay motionless. Jibril, peace be upon him, opened his chest. He drew out the heart. He extracted from it a clot, alaka, thick, dark blood. And he spoke the words the hadith preserves exactly. Hada hazus shaitani minka. This is the portion of Satan in you. Then he washed the heart in a golden basin with the water of Zamzam. He restored it to its proper form. He returned it to its place. He closed the chest. The children ran to the wet nurse. They were crying one thing: Muhammad has been killed. Halima rushed toward him and found him alive. He was standing, but the color of his face had changed, the pallor that comes over a person after a tremendous shock. He was silent. On his chest was a scar. Anas ibn Malik saw that scar with his own eyes. Decades later, when Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, was already the prophet and messenger. The scar had not faded, it remained, a physical testament to what had happened that day on the dusty ground outside Mecca. The scholars who commented on this hadith across the centuries asked one question above all others. What exactly was that clot? Mulla Ali al-Qari, in his Mirqat al-Mafati, answers, "It is the root of all vices and disobedience in the heart. The thick blood, a physical image of what makes a human being vulnerable to the whisperings of Satan. Weaknesses, inclinations towards sin, the point of entry through which evil reaches the human heart. Every person carries this point. In Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, it was removed, physically, by the hands of an angel, with the water of Zamzam in a golden basin. Why a golden basin? Why specifically the water of Zamzam? Why physical rather than purely spiritual? Hafiz ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, one of the greatest Islamic scholars, gives an answer that dismantles every attempt to read this event as metaphor. All the transmitted hadiths about the opening of the chest, the removal of the heart, and other supernatural phenomena must be accepted with submission and faith without attempting to interpret them allegorically or deny their true meaning. For the power of Allah is without limit, and none of this is impossible for him. This was a real operation, a real golden basin, real water from Zamzam, a real scar, which Anas ibn Malik saw with his own eyes. The meaning of this first opening, Ibn Hajar states clearly, it allowed Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, to grow up in the finest possible state, protected from Satan. After this event, his childhood was different. Satan held over him the influence he holds over every human being, and lost it, forever. Halima, frightened by what had happened, returned the boy to his mother earlier than planned. She was afraid, and yet felt, at the same time, this child is under a special protection. Two feelings that do not sit easily together. His mother received him back. Mecca received him back. The boy with the scar on his chest returned to the city of idols, the city that 40 years later would hear from him words that would shake all 360 of its statues to their foundations. But before that could happen, the angel would come again, with the same golden basin, with the same water of Zamzam, with a different purpose. Chapter 3, the second opening, on the eve of the mission. 40 years had passed. The boy with the scar on his chest had become a merchant of unblemished reputation, a man the entire city called Al-Amin, the trustworthy. He had married. He was raising children. He traded honestly in a society where deception was the norm. But something inside him was searching for more. He retreated more and more often to the cave of Hira. He spent days and nights there in solitude. He gazed at the stars above the Arabian desert, sharp, cold, infinitely distant. He thought about what lay beyond them. Who had created this sky? Who moved these celestial bodies with such precision that not a single star arrived early or late? The idols surrounding the Kaaba were silent. Stone remains stone, no matter how earnestly it is petitioned. In his 40th year, the revelation came. Jibril, peace be upon him, appeared in the cave, and the first word was, "Read." Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, returned home shaken, trembling, wrapped in a cloak. This much is widely known. But there is a detail that many overlook. Shortly before the beginning of his prophetic mission, before the first revelation in the cave of Hira, the angel came again. He came with the same act he had performed 40 years earlier over a small boy on the dusty earth of Mecca. The opening of the chest was repeated. This is reported by Abu Nu'aym in his book Dala'il al-Nubuwah, The Proofs of Prophethood. A third event among three, each examined separately by scholars, each with its own purpose, each at its own appointed moment. Hafiz ibn Hajar al-Asqalani explains the meaning of the second opening in Fath al-Bari, his monumental commentary on the collection of al-Qari. The next opening of the chest occurred at the beginning of the prophetic mission. It was an expression of special honor toward him, intended to fortify his heart for the reception of the revelation being sent down to him, and to bring it to a state of the highest purity. To fortify his heart for the reception of revelation. Consider that. The Quran is the word of Allah, transmitted through an angel into a human heart. It is not merely information. It is a light of such intensity that an ordinary human heart requires special preparation to receive it. The first opening in childhood had protected him from Satan. The second, before the prophethood, prepared him to receive revelation. A blacksmith tempers metal before entrusting it with a load it must carry. Allah was tempering the heart of his prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, before placing upon it what no human being before him had ever borne. Shortly after, the cave of Hira, the night of power, Laylat al-Qadr. Jibril, peace be upon him, with the first verse. Read in the name of your Lord who created. The prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, ran home that night, shaken, his face transformed, demanding to be covered. Khadijah, may Allah be pleased with her, wrapped him and said, Allah will never abandon you. He did not. But before granting the prophethood, he prepared, physically, with a surgical precision no earthly physician could achieve. Then the revelations began to descend. Verses came down upon a heart ready to receive them, washed, fortified, brought to a state of the highest purity. For 23 years, the Quran entered this heart, word by word, verse by verse. Arabia trembled. The Quraysh heard words that dismantled their world. The free man and the slave stand equal before God. The idols are stone and wood. One God and no other. They answered with torture, boycott, and threats of murder. Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, continued. 12 years in Mecca, under a pressure that would have broken anyone. Then Medina, then a state, then victory. The heart over which Jibril, peace be upon him, had worked twice carried the revelation through all of this, without a single distortion, without the fear that might have softened the words, without the weakness that Satan might have turned to his advantage. The scar on his chest remained. Anas ibn Malik saw it in Mecca. He saw it in Medina. He saw it in the final years of the Prophet's life. May Allah bless him and grant him peace. But there was one more event, a third, the most magnificent of all three. On the night when the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, was raised through 7 heavens, to a nearness to Allah that no human being had ever reached, the angel came again, and the golden basin of Zamzam appeared for the 3rd time. Chapter 4. The Night the Sky Opened. There are nights that change history. This one changed the entire cosmos for one man. Mecca. Around the year 620 CE, the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, lay in his home. The year of sorrow had just passed, the year that had taken Khadija and Abu Talib. The pressure from the Quraysh had reached its breaking point. Ta'if had driven him away with stones. On every side the path seemed closed, and on that night the roof of his house opened. The Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, described this himself in a hadith preserved by Imam al-Qari in his Sahih. The words are narrated from Abu Dar, may Allah be pleased with him, with a precision that distinguishes hadiths of the highest degree of authenticity. The Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, said, "While I was in Mecca, the roof of my house was opened, and Jibril descended. He opened my chest and washed it with Zamzam water. Then he brought a golden basin full of wisdom and faith and poured its contents into my chest and sealed it. Then he took me by the hand and ascended with me to the nearest heaven." 3 acts before the journey began: the opening, the washing, the filling. The first 2 were familiar, though the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, experienced them now at a different level than in childhood or at the dawn of his mission. The third was new. On this night, the golden basin held something different: wisdom and faith. Not merely a cleansing from corruption, a filling, active, deliberate, a pouring into the chest of precisely what was needed for what lay ahead. Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani explains the purpose of this third opening with surgical precision. The third time the chest was open was when it was intended to raise him to the heavens, in order to prepare him for the conversation with the Most High. To prepare him for the conversation with the Most High. That sentence requires a pause. Allah spoke to Musa, peace be upon him, and it was so tremendous that Mount Sinai shook and crumbled to dust. Now the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, was preparing for something no human being had ever experienced before: an ascent through 7 heavens, meetings with the prophets, and at the end, the distance of 2 bows' length or less. Such a journey required a heart that had been prepared 3 times. Jibril, peace be upon him, took him by the hand. They rose. The first heaven, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh. At every level, a meeting with the prophets. Adam, peace be upon him, on the first heaven, looking upon the souls of his descendants. Isa and Yahya, peace be upon them both, on the second. Yusuf, peace be upon him, on the third, beautiful, as the narrations describe, with a beauty that words struggle to convey. Idris, peace be upon him, on the fourth. Harun, peace be upon him, on the fifth. Musa, peace be upon him, on the sixth. And when the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, ascended further, Musa wept. When the angels asked why, he answered, "This young man, sent after me, will bring more of my community into paradise than I will. On the seventh heaven, Ibrahim, peace be upon him, leaning against al-Bayt al-Ma'mur, the heavenly house, visited daily by 70,000 angels who never returned to it again. And then, Sidrat al-Muntaha, the boundary beyond which everything that is created comes to its limit. Jibril, peace be upon him, stopped here. He told the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, what can only be expressed through one image. I cannot go further. If I draw one step closer, my wings will be consumed. The Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, continued alone. It was there that the prescription of the 5 daily prayers was revealed. At first, 50 times each day. On the way back, Musa, peace be upon him, stopped the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, and urged him to return, to ask for a reduction for his community. The Prophet returned several times until the number became 5. Musa encouraged him to ask for more, but the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, said, I am too ashamed to return again. 5 prayers, carrying the reward of 50, and so it has remained to this day. The heart that Jibril, peace be upon him, had prepared 3 times carried all of this and preserved it. Every detail, every heaven, every meeting, every word spoken in a place no human being had reached before or since. When the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, returned to Mecca, the bed was still warm. According to the narrations, an entire night had contained a journey that, by any measure of distance, surpassed what the human mind could calculate. The next morning he told the Quraysh what he had seen. Some fell away. They said, this is madness. A man to Jerusalem and back in a single night? They questioned him about the architecture of al-Masjid al-Aqsa, trying to catch him in a lie. He described every detail, every column, every entrance. Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, heard and said immediately, if he says it, it is the truth. From that day he was called al-Siddiq, the truthful. The scar on the chest of the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, now carried the memory of 3 operations, 3 openings, 3 washings, 3 stages of preparation of a single heart, for protection from Satan, for the reception of revelation, for the meeting with the Creator. But scholars were asking a question whose answer unlocks something fundamental. Why physical? Why a golden basin in Zamzam water rather than a purely spiritual transformation, invisible, leaving no trace? That answer overturns every familiar assumption about the way Allah deals with those He has chosen. Chapter 5. Why the Golden Basin, and what it tells us about the nature of God. There is a question that theologians have asked for 14 centuries. It sounds simple, but behind it lies one of the deepest concepts in Islamic theology. Allah is omnipotent. He says, be, and it is. He could have transformed the heart of His Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, with a single command. Instantly, without an angel, without a golden basin, without Zamzam water, without a scar that companions would see for decades. Why did He choose this way? Scholars worked on this question, and the answer they arrived at overturns the familiar understanding of the relationship between God and man. Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani in Fath al-Bari provides the key. Had the Most High removed that clot without the agency of the angel Jibril and the opening of the chest, the honor shown to him and the fact of the purification would perhaps have remained hidden from the people. Hidden from the people. That is the crucial phrase. Allah made it so that people would know, so that they would see, so that the scar would remain on the chest, and Anas ibn Malik could look upon it for years and understand. This man passed through something beyond comprehension, yet visible to observation. The physical act became testimony. The golden basin, not merely a vessel, but a sign of singular honor. The water of Zamzam, not merely liquid, but the sacred water that sprang from beneath the feet of Ismail, peace be upon him, in a lifeless desert. The hand of Jibril, peace be upon him, not merely an instrument of cleansing, but a visible expression of Allah's care for his prophet. May Allah bless him and grant him peace. All of it was made manifest, in order to become proof. Mulla Ali al-Qari, in Mirqat al-Mafati, dissects the hadith's details with the care that distinguishes the great commentators. The word alaka, the clot, he describes as thick blood, the root of all vices and disobedience in the heart, an image that carries both physical and spiritual dimensions simultaneously. In Islamic understanding, the physical and the spiritual are inseparable. This stands against the way Western philosophy has taught many people to think about religion, dividing the body from the soul, treating spiritual experience as interior and invisible, leaving no mark on the exterior world. The physical is kept apart. The Islamic tradition is structured differently. Prayer is a physical act. Fasting is a physical trial. Hajj is a physical journey. Ritual purification before prayer is a physical cleansing that carries spiritual meaning. Body and soul in Islam form a single whole, and a change in one changes the other. The opening of the Prophet's chest, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, follows this same logic. A physical act produces a spiritual transformation. A spiritual transformation leaves a physical trace. The scar on the chest is not merely a mark. It is the seal of a specific preparation, visible evidence of an invisible process. Ibn Hajar notes one further detail that is easily missed. It is possible that the purpose of washing the heart on the night of Ascension was to achieve full completion, since Islamic law establishes the desirability of performing actions 3 times. 3 times, as ablution before prayer is performed 3 times, as many acts of Islamic practice are repeated 3 times, as a sign of wholeness and completion. The first opening, protection, a childhood lived without Satan's portion. The second opening, fortification, a heart made ready to receive revelation. The third opening, filling, a chest poured full of wisdom and faith before the conversation with the Most High. 3 stages of a single preparation, 3 operations spread across years, yet forming one unified design. A design carried out by Allah with a precision that surpasses all human planning. Why specifically the water of Zamzam and not any other water? Scholars point to its origin. Zamzam sprang from the earth by the will of Allah, when Hajar ran desperately between the hills of Safa and Marwa, searching for water for the dying Ismail, peace be upon him. The Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, said of it, Zamzam water is for the purpose for which it is drunk. People drank it intending healing, and were healed, intending to satisfy hunger, and were satisfied. Jibril, peace be upon him, used it to wash the heart of the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, with an intention of the highest possible purification. Water born from Allah's mercy toward a mother and child in the desert became the instrument for cleansing the heart of the last of the prophets. The connection between these events is not coincidence. In Islamic history, there are no coincidences. The Golden Basin. Many theologians regard gold as a symbol of purity and incorruptibility, a metal that does not corrode, that does not change its nature. A vessel of gold for the purification of the heart of the one who must carry an imperishable message, an image whose precision exceeds the human capacity for symbol making. Al-Qurtubi, in Al-Mufhim, closes all debate about the authenticity of these events in a single sentence. No weight should be given to the opinion of those who deny the opening of the chest on the night of Ascension, since all the narrators of this hadith are trustworthy and well-known individuals. This is not legend, not metaphor, not a pious embellishment crafted to adorn the biography of the Prophet. May Allah bless him and grant him peace. These are events recorded with the same rigor applied to the words about prayer, fasting, and pilgrimage. The scar on the chest of the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, was seen by people. Their names are recorded. Its description was transmitted across generations with the same care with which the Quran was transmitted. But one final question remains, the question that the most attentive readers of this story will inevitably ask. If Satan received his portion in every human being, and the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, was physically stripped of that portion, what does this mean for everyone else? For those who have no golden basin and no hand of Jibril, peace be upon him. The answer lies in the final chapter, and it sounds nothing like what one might expect. Chapter 6. What remained after 3 openings, and what it means for each of us. There is an ending that no one expects from this story. The story of the opening of the Prophet's chest, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, appears to be a story about exceptionality, about one man chosen above all others, about a preparation so singular that it is beyond anyone else's reach, a golden basin, the hand of Jibril, peace be upon him, the water of Zamzam, a scar seen with human eyes. All of this for him alone. And yet the ending of this story speaks to every person alive. Return to the words Jibril, peace be upon him, spoke over the small boy on the dusty ground of Mecca. This is the portion of Satan in you. The clot was removed. The portion was destroyed. The Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, grew up without something that exists in every human being, without the point of entry that Satan uses to exert his influence. This means one thing. In every other person, that point remains. Mulla Ali al-Qari names it directly, the root of all vices and disobedience in the heart. The thick blood, the clot, an image of what makes a human being vulnerable, weaknesses, inclinations toward sin, the place where Satan's whisper finds a resonance. This is not a sentence. It is the condition of the test. Allah did not remove this vulnerability from other human beings because it is precisely this vulnerability that makes the choice real. The Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, was physically purified because his mission demanded absolute protection from any corruption. The message had to pass through him untouched, like water through an unobstructed spring. The slightest influence of Satan upon the one transmitting the word of Allah would have distorted everything. Everyone else carries their vulnerability and chooses every day what to do with it. This is where the story of the 3 openings becomes the story of every human being. The first opening was protection. The second was preparation to receive revelation. The third was a filling, with wisdom and faith, before the meeting with the Most High. 3 stages of preparing one heart for one mission. The Islamic tradition offers every person their own version of these 3 stages, their own sequence of purification through different means. Tahara, ritual purity, is a physical act with a spiritual meaning. Ablution before prayer. Water moving across the body in a prescribed order. Physical cleansing as preparation for standing before Allah. The same logic as the washing of the Prophet's heart, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, with Zamzam water. The 5 daily prayers, those very prayers revealed on the night of Ascension, when the chest of the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, was filled with wisdom and faith, are the daily return to the state he experienced once, in its absolute form. Every prostration, a drawing near to Allah. Every prayer, a cleansing of what accumulated in the interval between them. The fast of Ramadan, a physical trial with a spiritual outcome. The body is made vulnerable, and through that vulnerability, something changes within. This is the same logic that underlies the golden basin and the hand of Jibril, peace be upon him. The physical is the instrument of the spiritual. The visible is the testimony of the invisible. The scar on the chest of the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, remained throughout his life. Anas ibn Malik saw it in Mecca. He saw it in Medina. He saw it in those final years when the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, stood on the plain of Arafat before 120,000 pilgrims and delivered the words of the farewell pilgrimage. The man with 3 marks on his heart stood before a sea of people and spoke to them of equality, justice, and unity. On the 12th of Rabi al-Awwal, he died, in a small room, on a woven mat, with his head resting on the lap of Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her. The body, 3 times purified by Jibril, peace be upon him, returned to the earth. But what all that preparation was for remained. The Quran, the prayer, the Sunnah. Every word that passed through that purified heart was preserved exactly as it was received. Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani states the conclusion with the clarity that makes his words the final word on this story. All the transmitted hadiths about the opening of the chest, the removal of the heart, and other supernatural phenomena must be accepted with submission and faith, without attempting to interpret them allegorically or deny their true meaning. For the power of Allah is without limit, and none of this is impossible for him. The power of Allah is without limit. This is not a theological formula. It is the key to understanding this entire story. A God who can say, "Be," and call a universe into existence, chose to send an angel with a golden basin to a small boy playing with other children. Chose to leave a scar that would be visible for decades. Chose to make it known. Not because he needed to make a display, but because human beings needed testimony. Something that could be seen, touched, passed from one person to another. Anas ibn Malik looked at that scar, and he knew. He passed it on to his students. They passed it on to theirs. The chain runs to Imam Muslim, who recorded the hadith in the Sahih, to Ibn Hajar, who commented on every word, to us, reading this now. 3 openings, 3 washings, 3 stages of preparation, 1 heart, 1 mission, 1 message, delivered to us exactly as it was received. The scar remained in history forever.